So, Mr. Rustler, I've been told you have a problem that requires immediate treatment. You need a brushectomy immediately. Guys, don't forget, subscribe and smash the bell. Alright guys, it is finally time to remove the brushed motor and the ESC from the brushed ESC, the XL5 ESC from my Rustler. I've actually never worked on this before, so I believe it is, from what I've seen, I believe it is these 3 screws here which lift this top plate. Then it's just a matter of the motor sliding out and then taking the motor off the motor plate. So let's just see whether that is actually the case. Get that turning the right way. Alright, 3 screws are off, so hopefully, oh, there we go, motor plate is definitely off. Alright, it looks like there's one there. Oh boy, is that one down there that needs to come out as well. That could be a bit tricky to get to. Alright, I'll have a bit of a look and see how we go. Alright guys, I've unscrewed all of these screws, so hopefully it should now be just a matter of lifting the motor with motor mount out of the car. There we go. Alrighty. Brushed motor is out, and boy, that is a tiny pinion. It's 10 tooth, I believe. Next up we will remove the ESC. It's got 2 screws holding it on, which Rustler fans would know of anyway. I'm not sure whether you can just take this cover off here, or whether you need to take the whole cover off to get that. You maybe need to take both, so I'll have a look at that now and then get back to you. Alright guys, it was as I suspected. You need to take this outer cover off in order to feed the end of the servo, the ESC wire in through that box, and then you need to take this box off in order to disconnect it. But it is now disconnected from the box, and the 2 screws holding it to the chassis are off, and ESC is now out of the building. So the Rustler is now officially empty of its motor bits. Pretty awesome. That is now clean up time and ready to start looking at installation of the brushless setup. I only hope that the brushless motor, with the size pinion that I've actually managed to get for it, which is 17, whether it'll actually fit in there. Alright guys, I have just gone ahead and attached the mounting plate for the Hobbywing ESC that actually came in the Hobbywing box, so that fits very nicely. I had to use the outside screw hole. There are two screw holes on one side. There's the inside one and the outside one. The inside one was being used for the XL. I think the VXL ESC uses the outside one, but this also needed to use the outside one. The ESC then, basically the Hobbywing one, just basically attaches to this plate by double-sided tape, which is quite easily. I will show you how it will sit. It will sit quite comfortably there, like so, on the double-sided tape, and there's plenty of room for the motor in there too, so that will look really cool. So I'll go ahead and attach the ESC with double-sided tape, and then we'll start looking at the motor. And I realise that the way the motor plate is designed like this, it actually swings outwards like that, so it gives plenty of room for a slightly larger slightly larger pinion to go on. So that's a good sign. I'm learning this as I go, guys, because I've actually never pulled a Rustler apart, so bear with me if I'm saying things that seem obvious. Anyway, I'll get back when I've done the ESC. Alright guys, the new brushless motor and ESC are now both installed in the car, and I have to say the brushless motor went in a lot easier than what I had anticipated, which is why it is all in without me doing any filming of any of the intermediate steps of the process, because it was all pretty much just one step. It was really not that difficult. I did, however, learn a couple of things. When I took this back plate here off, I removed 3 screws, and it actually only needs 1 screw removed, the center one. That's the only screw holding that entire plate on. So I learnt that. And there is also a screw on the bottom of the motor mount down here that actually does not need to be removed for the motor mount to come out. And that was a big learn, because it took me longer than I'm willing to admit on camera to get that screw right down in there back in with everything already in place. It was a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. And the only other thing that I have learned was that when I attached the motor to the motor mount, I could have chosen the 2 mounting holes that had the motor slightly turned a bit more, so these wires were a little bit more rotated around to the side, and as it sits, I wasn't able to utilize this wire bracket for its intended purpose. So what I ended up doing, instead of removing the motor and turning it, which was going to be just annoying, I actually put the bracket back on, but attached a bit of Ziploc through that bracket and over these, so it's still actually serving the purpose of holding the wires in place, but not in exactly the way that it was intended. And I ended up mounting the on-off switch up the front here, because there wasn't really any good places. I could have put it down in here on its side, but that would have just made it awkward to be pressing the set button and the on button at the same time, trying to reach your hands down in there. Didn't want to do that, and didn't want it on that, because that could end up getting in the way of the body, so at the front there is pretty much the best spot for it. But it all went together very nicely, guys. I'm very happy and it looks great. The wires are fairly neat as they stand. I've just got to neaten this one up here a little bit to make sure it's not gonna rub against the drive shaft. But that's pretty much all that I need to do, except for calibrate it to the ESC and then give it a test run, which I will hopefully be doing today. You won't see it at the same time, but I will be hopefully giving that a run today because the weather's looking really nice out there. But anyway, guys, I digress. It is done. Rustler is now converted from brushed to brushless, and I'm hoping that it runs alright. Oh, the other thing was that there on the motor mount there's this plate with 3 holes in it, that obviously these 3 holes are calibrated to pinions for like Traxxas pinions, like slightly bigger. That the pinion and the motor that I've got in don't calibrate with those holes, so I just took that off and it's just directly on the motor mount there. So that's the only other thing. Alright guys, that's it. We're on, and be time to give it a blast. Guys, don't forget, subscribe and smash the bell.